THANKYOU. Thank you, thank you. THANKYOU. Thank you, thank you. THANKYOU.
So today we're going to make chocolate Mexican wedding cookies. And we're making those because I wanted to show appreciation to you as our volunteer for the Alzheimer's Association. And if you were here in my kitchen, I would invite you to, I'd invite you to help make these cookies. But certainly after I made them, I'd want to serve you some of these chocolate Mexican wedding cookies in appreciation for everything that you do for the Alzheimer's Association when you're out in the community, doing our programs, delivering education, running support groups, lobbying our elected officials, going to walks, doing the longest day. So all the things that you do to deliver on our mission and support our efforts in the community. I just so appreciate that. And I can't thank you enough other than I would cook for you. I am going to cook for you, but in this case, I'm actually going to eat what I make also, and I'll tell you about how delicious it is. And you're going to have to make your own. So I'm going to show you how to do that, and you can make your own in your own kitchen. So these are pretty easy cookies to make. There aren't that many ingredients, and when you're done, you will feel like you could have a wedding all by yourself, and you'd be very happy with these cookies. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to cream the sugar and the butter. And so we start with 2 sticks of butter. So it's a cup of butter, which is 2 sticks. And to cream butter, you want to make sure that it's room temperature. And so I'm going to throw this butter in the food processor. So there's the butter, and then we're putting in 1/3 cup of powdered sugar. So not a lot of powdered sugar, but 1/3 cup. And we're going to cream this, which means that we're going to blend it until it's nice and smooth. So I'm just going to turn it on and let it go. You can see it doesn't take much for it to become blended and smooth. So really it's done, it's ready. So now we're going to add the other ingredients. And the other ingredients we have are 1 3/4 cup of pastry flour. I like whole wheat, and so everything I cook is with whole wheat. It's a little bit healthier, so you can feel a little better about it. So this is 1 3/4 cups of pastry whole wheat flour. And the difference between pastry flour and other flours is pastry flour has less gluten, so less protein, less gluten, which means that when you mix it and bake it, if you're making a cake or cookies, that it's going to be less chewy, less. You've all had a cake that's been overmixed and it's a little dry and it's a little, well, it has a little more body than what you want it to be. If you want it to be crumbly, then you need to use pastry flour. So we're going to use 1 3/4 cup pastry flour, in this case whole wheat. Then we're using 1 cup of pecan flour. So this is just ground pecans. I actually buy it as pecan flour, which is terrific. But you could just buy pecans and grind them. So that would be another step. And then we're going to have 1/2 cup of shredded chocolate, which we'll talk about how we got there. The recipe calls for 1/2 cup of milk chocolate that's been grated. I really like a darker chocolate, and of course with every recipe you can use whatever you want. So I'm going to use a dark chocolate. In fact, this is a Côte d'Or, which is a really great brand of chocolate, and this is a dark chocolate. So I'm going to grate 1/2 cup, and I'm using this lovely tray which has hearts on it. I'm going to shred on this, and I'm using this heart tray because as a volunteer you are the heart of our organization. So this is reminding me of why we're making these cookies today, which is for you at the heart of our organization. So we're going to grate, and if you're using milk chocolate, great. That's great if you're using milk chocolate. If you're using dark chocolate like I am, then it'll be a darker, richer, and maybe a little bit less sweet flavor, which is, in my mind, always delicious. So it takes a lot of grating to get to a half a cup. You could probably put it in the food processor and just grind it up in the food processor separately. So we'll add this to the recipe and it will make it completely delicious. Takes a lot more shredding than what I thought to get to a half a cup of chocolate, but it's worth it, and the smell of this chocolate being shredded is amazing. And there we go, that's a nice half a cup, and we'll put in a little more just for the heck of it. So now we've got a half a cup of shredded chocolate, and then we have some spices and some vanilla, and I'm going to add those into the butter first. So we're going to add some salt, and let me just look at the recipe and make sure. It's 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt, which basically is a little more than a pinch. So I'm not going to measure it, but I'm putting in a little bit of salt. By the way, the butter I use is always unsalted, so I start with no salt and then start adding things in. And then it calls for 3/4 of a teaspoon of cinnamon, so I'm putting in some delicious cinnamon, and we're going to put in 3/4 of a teaspoon, so this is a half teaspoon, and then I'm going to use the 1/4 teaspoon to get the rest of it. And you should never have anything that's just too sweet without adding a little of savory just to give you a kick. And of course, since it's Mexican, and in the traditions of Mexican chocolate, there's always spice as well as cinnamon. That's chocolate has cinnamon and some spice. So this is cayenne pepper, and we're putting in a 1/16, so that's like a smidge. So this is 1/4, and so 1/4 of a quarter is what we're going to end up with. That's a 1/16, so we're going to put in a little, and if you put in a little too much, it'll just make it more exciting when you eat this stuff. So, and then we wanted to put in the vanilla, and the vanilla we're putting in 2 teaspoons. And this is a nice Mexican vanilla extract, so very authentic. We're putting in Mexican vanilla, 2 teaspoons. You can buy real vanilla, which is what this is, pure Mexican vanilla extract, or you can buy, for a lot less money, but a lot less taste, you can buy the artificial vanilla, which is vanillin with an N at the end. That's not the real stuff. And you can even buy stuff that says it's Mexican vanilla, and if you read the ingredients, it's either all vanillin or half vanillin. Don't spend the money on that. Get the real vanilla extract, and you'll be able to tell the difference. Okay, so now we've got the spices and the vanilla, and we're going to now blend that into this butter. We're going to mix the flours, so the whole wheat flour, which is the pastry flour, and the pecan, and the chocolate. We're going to just mix that all together, and then we're going to put it into the machine. And once that's all mixed, then we're going to put it in a bowl and put it in the refrigerator and let it chill for a few hours so that it gets nice and hard. So when we get ready to work it, we're going to make little 1-inch balls with this, put it on cookie sheets, and put it in the oven. But as you know, butter melts pretty fast, so we need it to be as cold as possible so that it doesn't melt in our handling with making the little balls. So the first time I ever had Mexican wedding cookies was when I lived in Mexico. I studied in Mexico City at the National Autonomous University there, and I lived in a crazy little apartment building, and at that time in Mexico, even a middle class or lower middle class apartment building always had a maid who lived on the roof, up in the open roof. She had a tarp that covered her space, and she and her little, I don't know, 4-year-old son lived up there. And the way that she made money was she cleaned everyone's apartment in the whole building, and we paid her. And for a little extra, she would come in and cook. And so she would come in and make a pot of beans and make different desserts. And so she and I became fast friends. I thought she was amazing, and of course she knew how to cook Mexican food, which I did not. And so she showed me how to make refried beans from scratch. In fact, refried beans, it's funny, I had never seen one of these before, and the first time I ever used one was when I lived in Mexico. I thought this was for making refried beans, not for making mashed potatoes, but there you go. So anyway, she also made wedding cookies. So this, I can tell you, she didn't have a food processor. She did it all by hand. But we progressed a little. So now we're just going to add all of the flour, and we're going to mix it up. And the good news is that because we're using pastry flour, mixing it like this is not going to make it tough. Where if we were using regular flour, it would become tough from mixing this much. And I'm going to just scrape the sides and make sure that it's fairly well mixed. But you can see that it's pretty much mixed. It doesn't need any help. So we'll just do a couple more pulses with the food processor, and then we'll put it in the refrigerator to chill, and then we'll come back in a couple hours and we'll make the rest of it. So we're ready to chill this in the fridge. If you didn't have a food processor, you could have done this all by hand, and it wouldn't have been that much more difficult. So if you did it by hand, you would just cream the butter and sugar, which you can do that with a fork. Just blend it together, and in a separate bowl you would have done just what I did, mixing the flours, and you would by hand just mix in the flour into the butter mix. And a fork is really the best way to mix doughs like this. Works better than anything else, definitely better than using a spoon. And if you don't have a rotary mixer, hand mixer, that's okay. You can see how thick this is. It wouldn't have worked well with a hand mixer anyway. So, all right, we are ready to go in the fridge, and we will come back to this in a few hours. So we're back. It's been actually more than 2 hours. It's been about 2.5 hours that the dough has been in the refrigerator. And during that time, we actually went out for a bike ride. So we left it, went out for a bike ride. I changed into the Longest Day shirt. And actually, it's felt like the longest day because we've done a lot. You know what? We have a fundraiser called The Longest Day, and some of you may have participated, and if you haven't, what a great idea. You could participate in The Longest Day. In fact, you could cook your favorite recipe, and you could get your friends to support you while you're doing it, and then you would be able to help fund our mission. So there you go. Anyway, so we're going to now get 1-inch balls of this and put it on this cookie sheet. So I have put a reusable silicone mat, which I really like them. There are very expensive ones that are made from France, or there are really cheap ones like this that came from Aldi's for just a few dollars. I think, I don't know, maybe $4 a piece or something, very cheap, and they last forever and nothing sticks to them. So it's great. You don't spray them, you just use them just the way they are. So you can either grab balls, if you wanted to just grab a ball's worth and try and get about 1 inch size, or I have this handy dandy scoop which is just about the right size, and we're going to put them on the mat, and we're going to put them about an inch apart from each other, and then we're going to bake them. So we're putting them on the mat and we're putting them an inch apart. They shouldn't spread very much, but you just want to make sure that they don't encroach on each other. According to this recipe that I have, interestingly, it says that it will make between 12 and 24. I don't understand that. I don't understand a recipe that doesn't know if you're making 12 or 24. Since the amount of dough is set, you'd think they would have been able to figure that out before they published the recipe. So we're going to find out. I have 2 pans here just in case we actually end up with closer to the 24 than the 12. And we'll just see where we go.
C is for cookie, that's good enough for me. C is for cookie, that's good enough for me. C is for cookie, that's good enough for me.
We're up to 16. I have a feeling that we may be closer to the 24 or even beyond the 24 number.
C is for cookie, that's good enough for me. Oh, cookie, cookie, cookie starts with C. Hey, you know what? A round cookie with one bite out of it looks like a C. A round donut with one bite out of it also looks like a C, but it is not as good as...
So we're almost done, finally. We're down to the last bits of dough. 44, and they said 12 to 24. So I'm a magician. On top of everything else, I can turn dough for 12 into dough for 44 cookies. I think there's a Bible story like that. We'll have to figure out what that is. Okay, so we're going to put them in the oven at 325 for about 15 minutes, more or less. And when they come out, we let them cool, and then we toss them with a combination of powdered sugar and cocoa, and they will be most delicious. Cocoa. Actually, I'm going to put one batch on the top and one batch on the bottom, and we'll put on the timer for 15 minutes, and we'll be back in 15 minutes and see how they come out. So it's been about 17 minutes, and I think they're ready. So we're going to take them out of the oven, and you can see they look nice. They've got a little bit of a cracking going on. They're supposed to be firm, which they are. So we're going to put them here and let them cool. Those guys moved. I don't know what they were doing, but they were moving around in there. I guess they were having a little party, a little wedding party going on. So now we're going to let them cool. And once they cool, we're going to transfer them to the wire rack. Actually, you know what? We can transfer them now to the wire rack. So they're fine. We'll just move them so that they'll... And you can see they don't stick at all on this. They're a little hot, so if you're a tender... if you've got a tender finger, then you might want to wait until they cool a little more. And we're going to just put them here, let them fully cool. And then the next step is we're going to toss them with a mix of powdered sugar and cocoa. And at that point they are ready for us to eat. Actually, at every point they're ready for us to eat. But I'm going to at least pretend, for your sake, that I haven't tasted one.
C is for cookie, that's good enough for me. Oh, cookie, cookie, cookie starts with C.
Oh, look at that. Too bad. We'll have to just eat that. Really delicious. Okay. So, we'll be back for the next step, which is tossing it with sugar. We're back. So, we've made the cookies. They've cooled. They're totally cool. And in the meantime, while those were cooling, I told you the oven was on, And so I made scones, and so these are oat scones that are quite delicious and healthy. And then I also made some whole wheat hamburger buns. Obviously you can't find hamburger buns, you can't find any bread, so we're going to have burgers later, and so there's hamburger buns and scones. And so now we're back and we're ready to do the dipping of these wedding cookies into powdered sugar and cocoa. So we have half a cup of powdered sugar and we have a quarter of a cup of cocoa. And the challenge with powdered anything, powdered cocoa, powdered sugar, is that sometimes it can be lumpy and you want it to be well mixed and you don't want it to be lumpy. So I happen to have something from the Dark Ages that some of you probably never seen before, and it's to sift flour, which, who does that? But it's great for getting the lumps out of these kinds of powders. You could also just take a strainer basket, if you have a wire basket, and just dump it in and shake it and knock out the lumps. So I'm going to put the powdered sugar in, and I'm going to put the cocoa in, and we're going to just sift it, and you can see that it comes out very nice and not lumpy, and it's mixed, which is great. So in the same motion, we mix the powdered sugar and the cocoa, and we get the lumps out. Now, in the bottom of this, there always are some lumps. So I don't know if you want to show that there do end up being some lumps in the bottom, even with the best sifter. And I don't like to throw anything away, so I'm just going to reach down here and push it through the little wire bottom of this sifter, and then we'll have all the cocoa. It's all cocoa that was still lumpy. And so now we're ready to go. We've got the mix of powdered sugar and cocoa, and all we're going to do is take them and drop them in, and then take them out, and they have a little dusting on top. So we're going to just put these wedding cookies in here and toss them around, and they're ready to be served for your volunteer appreciation. And I'm sure you appreciate how beautiful they are, and when you make them you'll appreciate how delicious they are. And I can tell you, with each bite I'll be thinking of you and wishing that you could enjoy them with me, but know that I'm thinking about you as I enjoy them. And again, thank you so much for being the most incredible volunteer in helping advance our mission and help as many people as possible out in the community through all the things that you do. So thank you so much. We really appreciate you. In fact, we love you, and we would marry you if we maybe weren't already married. And anyway, we're just going to think of you and eat cookies. So thank you.
To all the people you love and love, show them the way that you feel. Shower the people you love and love, show them the way that you feel. Shower the people you love and love, show them the way.
Time has come for this cookie. Nom 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 nom. Oh, nom 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 nom. Ah. Bye bye.